Good evening, everyone. This is an informal talk given just to share something with you about the different modes of practice. This is not something normally talked about in Zen practice, but it came up to my attention when we were doing the Zoom video to celebrate the release of Deepening Zen, the long maturation. And in traditional Chinese and Japanese Zen practice, mostly it consists of people going into monasteries, and they go in theoretically for life. And they stay in the monastery doing the practice at whatever level any given monastery has. And if it goes deeply enough in terms of their teacher, then they may become another teacher. Otherwise, they will simply be another shugosha, as it's known as in Japan, another spiritual practitioner. But in the West, our culture is very, very different from that of China or Japan. And most people who do Zen practice are lay people who have jobs and families. There's very few people who actually go into monastic communities in the United States, and certainly not for life. And so I wanted to share something about the different ways that Westerners are successfully doing Zen practice in a concentrated manner. If you have seen that video of the book release celebration, you'll have watched several people, the 5 people who were part of this book making happening, telling about their own history and their own ways of practicing. And so we'll start with the first person. She is an osteopathic physician, and she spends a certain amount of time, a certain percentage of her year teaching at an osteopathic hospital and medical school, and also treating patients. The rest of the time she has spent at Mountain Gate. So she may be here for 3 months and then go back to work for the rest of the year. Or in the case of this coming year, she's going to be coming for a longer period. And this is an extremely helpful way to go about practice, particularly if anyone has had any level of trauma, because practice has a way of uncovering things hidden deep in our psyche, which is for the good, because without those things being uncovered, we cannot process them through and become free of them. But I have seen in monastic communities, particularly places where the practice extremely highly scheduled, where there are many, many, many sesshin, the extended sittings, and where people just don't have a chance to get a gap and take time to process these things that do come up. And I have seen a number of people under those circumstances crash and burn, actually, which is very sad, because they were good people. Their practice was deep. They did need to process some of the things that came up, all the things that came up, actually. And this is one of the reasons why some of the imported Zen teachers have abused their students, because they never got a chance to work on these psychological issues, these situations where they were unwittingly behaving in inappropriate ways. Most of us have these different ways hidden from us, and we are trying our best to be the very best people we can be. But sometimes we get into habit patterns of creating negative situations, negative talk, negative interactions with people, and so on. that are really, in some ways, calculated by us. And we hide these from ourselves. We think we're being really nice or being appropriately reactive when perhaps we're not. But as you go more deeply into your Zen practice, you will become aware of these things. And you have a choice there. You can either open to the feeling in your belly, in your whole body, the remorse, the embarrassment, the wish that you hadn't behaved like that. And that gives you a chance to work with processing the habit pattern so that you no longer get caught in it. But it takes time. You can't just focus only on your koan, if you're working on koans, and knock everything else out of the water or shove it all under the carpet. It doesn't work, because those things are still resident in your psyche, and they will still pull strings behind the scenes. And so you may go deeply into your koans, but if you ignore the other things that come to your consciousness, then you are actually going to be in a very bad place. This is why this book is called Deepening Zen, the long maturation. It is the long maturation that is vital in practice, because having the most amazing kensho in the universe won't free you unless you also do the hard work of bringing it to life in your life. Jack Kornfield wrote a book called After the Ecstasy, the Laundry, and that is very apt. You have a deep awakening or even a shallow awakening. You feel wonderful, and then you begin to realize that there are certain behavior patterns that you're not happy with, that are not as compassionate as you would like to be or as wise as you would like to be. And there's your opportunity to work with them so that they stop being active in your life. If you don't, again, they're going to pull your strings behind the scenes. So it is important in our Zen practice to have time, whether it's a few months or a few years, or ongoingly, a practice where, for example, you go into a temple for several years, and then you go out into the world, and you come back to the temple for chunks of time, 3 months, 6 months, and then back into the world, and then repeat. And this is really important, particularly helpful for people who have experienced trauma. So the second person in this video is currently a nurse practitioner in psychiatry. When she was 11 years old, she took up the French horn. And the interesting thing about wind instruments is that you have to learn to blow a long out breath. A long out breath with focus. And this is exactly the practice of Susokan, the extended out breath that is the basic fundamental practice, and really the advanced practice as well in Rinzai Zen. So she was doing that. And when she was 16, she actually started doing Zen meditation. There was no teacher, but she somehow learned to do it. And then when she was in college, I was going to Missouri, where she was in college, to offer zazenkais and introductory workshops of Zen. And she came to those. And then when she was in college, also, during the summers after that, she would be working at Philmont Scout Ranch in northern New Mexico. And of course, Mountain Gate is located in northern New Mexico, although at the time, it consisted of raw land with the old traveler trailer that I was living in, that someone had given me when I returned from Japan, and an outhouse. We had water, but we had to haul water. The trailer was on its last legs. Most of it didn't work. We had 3 or 4 burners on the stove. The refrigerator wouldn't shut. And it was too expensive to heat. So most of the time there was no heat. And in winters in northern New Mexico, when you're living in a metal box, it gets quite cold. So that was what we had. But she and a friend came on weekends, and they helped out. As a matter of fact, they marked the lines on the land for the footings to be dug for the zendo, which was the first part of this building that we built. Then after she graduated, she came and stayed at Mountain Gate for 7 years, practicing, going to all the sessions, and also sometimes accompanying me to Hidden Valley Zen Center, where I was also teaching and going to session there. Then she went out into the world because she needed to make some money so that she could cover her own health insurance. Mountain Gate had no money back then, not that we have that much now, but we had even less then, and we certainly could not afford to cover anyone's health insurance or anything else. So she went to nursing school and became a nurse and worked for, oh goodness, I think it was 10 years after that at least. And during those times, because she was a nurse, and this is consciously chosen, she was able to spend time at Mountain Gate and go to session. Then she realized that she would not be able to be a hospital nurse forever because it was a little rough standing up all day. And so she went online and took a 5-year course, both doing the course full-time and being a nurse at the hospital full-time and coming to all the sessions at Mountain Gate. And at the end of 5 years, she emerged with a doctorate in, as a nurse practitioner, doctorate in psychiatry. And nowadays, she has a clinic that she is working at 1 day a week, because the regulations say that you have to see your patients at least once a year in-house, in person, particularly in psychiatry. And the rest of the time, she does that work on telehealth up at Mountain Gate. She schedules her patients such that she's able to actually go to every single session. That's another manifestation, another mode of practice. And then the next person is a young man who decided, after he graduated from Eastman School of Music, to come to Mountain Gate for a whole year of concentrated practice before he went on to graduate school. And he did that. And of course, if you're living at Mountain Gate, you need to go to every session. You're required to go to every session and all the sittings. And we normally have a session pretty much 1 a month. Sometimes we have what we call dual sessions, where there's just a week between sessions, which is really, really helpful because you don't have a chance to fully get back down, so to speak, before you're going to session again. It is a practice that I experienced at Sogenji, and it is actually quite effective and quite wonderful. Not at all as bad as it sounds. And then he, at the end of his year, he went off to graduate school, where he is now, still planning to come to as many session by Zoom as he can, as his schedule allows. He's still involved with us, and so that's another way of doing practice in a concentrated way. And of course, if he continues to do these Zoom session, which he plans to do, then it will further deepen his practice. The next person, let me think of who that next person is. Okay, the next person actually belongs to another Zen center where he was ordained. And so he works there part-time. He also commutes to Durango for the rest of the month to be with his girlfriend. And he also comes to Zoom Sesshin. He also comes in person to Mountain Gate and does a lot of helping out here. And of course, he was part of the book making group, the book creating book group, and in fact was the person who started the ball running. It is another way to do it as a layperson, particularly with other responsibilities. And then the last person also has a beautiful little tween daughter who he shares custody with his ex-wife. He has a full-time job, which involves often a lot of overtime, yet he still manages to find time to do really important things with his daughter, hiking in the forest. At one point last year, I believe, he organized a little family concert. Well, not concert, but did a couple of pieces at a concert in another part of the state where he lives, with his daughter and her cousin playing tambourine while he did the guitar and sang. And he also does a lot of sesshin, some of them in person, some of them not. So these are all various different ways that people have discovered to effectively do Zen practice. And it is important, as I said at the very beginning, not everyone is cut out to be in a monastery for the rest of their life. Not everyone is cut out to be in a monastery for even several years of their life. But because so many Westerners are drawn to Zen practice, and for good reason, they fit it in very creative ways in their lives. And that is very, very important. However we can do it, and it's important really to work with a teacher, with a sanctioned teacher who can give guidance. And also an aspect of that, because you're in daily life a lot and not just in your Zen practice event, such as sesshin or evening sitting or zazenkai or whatever, it's important to bring as much attention and awareness to everything you do. Brushing your teeth. Don't brush your teeth and daydream or think about what you have to do tomorrow. Just brush your teeth. Feel how it feels to brush your teeth. What is the taste of the toothpaste? How does it actually feel when you use that toothbrush? What kind of a toothbrush is it? Are you doing it by hand, or do you have an electric toothbrush? And what is your process? Do you floss first? And if you flossed, are you paying attention to the flossing process? Or washing dishes. These are two examples of events in our life that repeat often and which are easy to do kind of on remote control. It's quite easy to wash the dishes while you're thinking about something else. I here admire a young American woman who was a Sogenji when I was there, who's blind. She was born with glaucoma. It wasn't caught early, and she went through a number of surgeries that were all unsuccessful. And by the time I knew her, she was absolutely totally blind. In order to light a candle in the hondo for chanting, for example, she had to hold her hand on the wick and then point the lighter to her hand And when she felt the burn, she knew where the flame was, and she could take her hand away and light the candle, things like that. But to watch her wash dishes was enlightening. She had to feel every dish, every cup, every spoon, fork, chopsticks, fully, completely, in order to make it really clean. And so she was quite present with all of that out of necessity. For us who have sight, it's not as necessary, but it actually can help as you wash the dishes. And of course, unless you've got a dishwasher, then you want to feel the feel of the water, the feel of the suds, the feel of the cloth or sponge or brush or whatever it is you have in your hand that you're cleaning with. And you have to feel that you actually have gotten all of the waste off the plate. You can see it too, but to feel it is more important, because sometimes you can't see the more minor things, but you can feel them. So these are ways you can bring yourself to awareness and attention. And of course, awareness and attention are absolutely vital in Zen practice. They are probably the most important thing in Zen practice. And as you do your Zen practice here at Mountain Gate, we teach the extended out breath, which will continue even as you're working on koans. And to do it, you just simply notice breathing out. And then when you have breathed out to a point where you would automatically breathe back in again, instead you push it further out a bit. Your shoulders need to be relaxed. Your belly needs to be relaxed in order to do this properly. And when extending the out breath, it means really extending the out breath. You're not getting to a point where you're going to gasp, but you're definitely extending it further than if you would ordinarily breathe. You do that with full attention to your body and with a sense of openness to possibility, because what could be revealed as you're doing this practice with attention and awareness? If you fully concentrate on it, you will drop beneath the level of words, which is important. It's an aspect of this practice. So you're looking at it, in a sense, as if you're landed on some strange planet that you've never heard of before, have no ideas what it's like. And so you're kind of opening your eyes, opening your ears, listening, tuning in to see what you'll discover about this place. What's it like? So this is the sense of openness to possibility, the not knowing that so many of the ancient teachers have talked about in order to do that practice. One long ago, I think he was a Korean teacher, commented, turn the light back in and trace the radiance down to its source. Turn the light in and trace the radiance down to its source. In other words, inward, not outward, inward. This is not an intellectual event. This is an event beyond words. And what we're looking for is the great source, the source of our being, really, and our true nature, which will set us free. Along the way, you're going to find a lot of things that you'll be tempted to follow. But if you don't do that, not by forcing yourself away from them, but by, if they're really strong, acknowledging, okay, I'll come back to you later. But in the meantime, I've got this really important search I'm on. And this way, your practice will go more deeply, whether or not you're in a monastery, whether or not you're in a sesshin, and it's very important to do that, especially for lay people, because there are so few opportunities often, given our responsibilities, to actually do extended practice. The great Zen master Hakuin, 300 years ago, said that practice in the midst of activity is 10,000 times as effective as practice on the cushion. And what that means is really you need both. You can't just try to practice in the midst of activity, because you also need to get a refresher periodically by sitting on the cushion and searching there without the distraction of activity. But with Westerners who hold jobs, have families, and other responsibilities, it's a dynamite venue for practice. So long as you apply concentration and awareness. And what you heard are just 5 different modes of practice done by 5 different students here. And there are other alternatives as well that will fit into your lifestyle. And of course, you can work on things with your teacher. One of the things that you can do is to, when there's a break in the day, in other words, you have to go to the bathroom sometime, you have to get in your car and go to work, or get in your car and go home. At those transition moments, take just one moment to focus on your body, inwardly tuning in, and do one extended out breath. You will find it refreshes you, it renews you, and unwittingly, it will also deepen your practice. Now, you'll need to do also some time on the cushion as well, but that's a way that you can work even if you've got a job. So I think that's about it. You can write me and ask questions if you've got questions about this. But thank you for listening.